Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Gaming Academy. Hope you enjoyed the intro music. That was the 40th anniversary of Pac-Man. A little pre-teaser for tonight's content. But yes, it is a May 20th, 2025 over here at the Gaming Academy, and we are here with another fun-filled episode, which is, I think, Class 32 now. And we're coming to you live during our St. Jude's Play Live 2025 charity stream. We do this every year, or I do. At least I try to do it every year. And huge thanks to everyone who's been hanging out with us and donating. Y'all are the real heroes. Y'all the real ones, fam. Tonight we got a loaded syllabus, retro game anniversaries that'll hit your nostalgia hard, a stack of spicy industry updates, and some serious controller confessions. We're talking Bungie breakdowns, yikes, Switch 2 VR rumors, Doom numbers, and the ongoing saga of the tech with Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. So grab your energy drinks. Got mine right here. Equip your best main, and let's boot up Class 32 of the Gaming Academy. All right. So let's get introductions going here because we are running a little bit late. So let's go ahead and introduce our main man, Blazing Ace Nelson, proprietor of the Double KO Arcade and the headmaster of the tech.
How's it going, everybody? Good to see you.
What up?
Really quickly, I ran a poll earlier today for actually which one of the characters we're going to be moving on to next for the tech. And yeah, based on the results,
Raiden.
Like tonight is going to be talking.
What? Not Raiden? Damn it!
Oh God, I hope they actually add him to the roster.
They need the juxtaposed rival, right? For T-Zog, it has to be Raiden. So
yeah, they got to have the heel.
Yeah, of course. We got a lot of news coming up. I saw the syllabus today, and I was like, whoa. Lots of going on in the industry, lots of game releases for this week. So apparently May is a big release month for games. So
depending on what happens, I mean, as front loaded as we are with news, if T-Zog's got to wait till next Tuesday, then yeah.
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot of tech with T-Zog, that's for sure. All right, straight up from Night City, from his dark tower of information. You know him as Tragic Elite, but I know him as Nicholas.
Dark Tower of Information.
Yeah,
like Shadow Broker. I dig it.
That's right. I need you to get like a green screen and have just a pixel art of Night City in the background of like an office. That'd be so sick.
I would absolutely do that, man. Give me a little setup.
We'll get you going, man. We'll get you going. All right, welcome back, man. Thanks for the scoop. I saw the news today. I was like, oh man, we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, a lot of stuff at the last minute kind of cropped up, but as a lot of people know now who are pay any kind of attention to the news cycle in the game industry, it's just been about one big thing the last few days. So we'll get into that, but there's still some side stuff we're talking about. Hey, how's it going, Andre?
Rocking the beard, brother Nick.
No, I'm just growing it out just a tiny bit, man. Not even that. I got a little lazy.
Nick just flexed and just popped out of his mouth.
Yeah, that's what happened. I will say that I did decide to at least trim it because I didn't want it to go like too wild. So this is kind of just the in between. We'll see what happens.
Right on. All right, guys, let's get cracking. This syllabus is loaded, so let's jump right into this week in gaming history.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, Chad, before you rock and roll, just let you know we are nearing the end of the month for St. Jude's charity cancer research for children. We are at 145 right now. There is a list of donators on the I believe on the link on below there. And so if you want to donate and tell your friends and want to help donate for the cause, check it out down there. It's going to be in chat, spamming you. St. Jude's in the chat watching. So just know they're ready. They're ready to take your donations for you. So with that said, let's go on to our first game, which is May 18. Lots of good stuff, but man, this one I wanted to chat with you guys about because I think this one shines among all the other games on there. Okay. Now, I don't know if anybody in the chat has played Split Second, but if you combine awesome 90s television and battle racing with no guns or missiles, just environmental crashes, Split Second is probably the game that you need to play. So I know Ace has played this. He's also streamed it. I've snuck onto the back seat and kind of peeked around and see what he was doing. And Ace, can you just lead the charge on how awesome this game is?
Look, Back on the PS3, back on the PS2, one of the big games that I played, like just like my favorite racing game, bar none, Burnout. And I didn't really see much from the Burnout series on 3. I think like Burnout Paradise was the only one that hit that generation, but it didn't really quite do it for me the same way as Burnout, especially what you call it, Burnout Dominator and Burnout Revenge. And
Yeah, Revenge was my jam.
I like Revenge too a lot.
And like seeing, I had seen some footage of Split Second, and I actually saw one of the guys that I follow on YouTube and Twitter, Main Event TV, he was streaming Split Second for a little bit, and I've been wanting to pick this one up for a long time. Snagged it from one of the retro places a couple months back, put it in, started playing, started streaming it, and it's like, okay, take the crash events from Burnout, but put them into full long-form races and make it into a reality TV show. And that is Split Second.
1000%. I agree with that.
Real talk, that the TV show and season format in this game would actually play really well if Split Second was to make a comeback.
This kind of reminds me a little bit of just like Blur, when Blur came out as well, just like fast paced, kind of this was like real cars but Mario Kart-esque kind of thing. Like I really wish that got a sequel. I think there was one in like development for a little bit before it got canceled, but it kind of gave me that same vibe where it's like this is like kind of like Burnout. Now, granted, it had like power ups and stuff like Mario Kart and ways to like knock your friends off the track, but it kind of scratched the same itch that this kind of did when it came out too. So I just remember these both from that like PS3 360 era.
Yeah, this game was very unique in comparison to the other games that were racing games. I would say that were coming out on the latter end. I think 2010. I would say, right? It's 2010. So this was one of those weird ones. This game is actually, I think, owned by Disney at some point. It may still be owned by Disney. So it's in their vault, man. We can't touch this thing. But the thing that really resonated with me about this game is that we're talking about the return of Acclaim and Smash TV, and I think Split Second is the good example of how Twitch and streaming can integrate with the gameplay. Imagine you racing this game and then you got people voting on how to take you down on the court and on the racetrack. I think that would be super sick.
Crowd control with the environmental gimmicks. Oh yeah. No.
Absolutely. They can buff you or screw you over, and they can play favorites if it's multiplayer, right? They're on Team Ace or Team Tragic, right? So they can like vote for each other's abilities or like try to screw them up. I think that'd be super fun. Getting the crowd integrated with the gameplay. So
hey, Chop.
This game was off the chain, according to Andre. Yes, sir, it was.
Apparently, all right. There was a sequel for this that was canceled.
Oh man, that makes me sad. I'm very sad. What was it called? Like,
sorry, I was just gonna say it looks like Eurogamer actually spoke to a source that worked at Disney Interactive Studios. That because what happened is after the game was released, Blackrock Studios was shut down like right afterwards.
Yeah.
So Disney, when they did the reduction due to like the new management, that game being canceled, apparently there was attempts to get this to fit, but it just didn't fit the new business model that the new like heads had for it. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. I didn't know that.
Which is funny because I feel like this is the game to have a season pass because it is like TV based, right? So they need to get on that. We're like, oh yeah, in this season of Split Second, like you'll have these for this season. So if this is a game that's looking for longevity, as much as I don't want season passes and battle passes, right? But I do want a game to be supported and to be continued support over time. Like this formula right here, the way it's designed, right, aesthetically fits that model. So which is weird that they cut it. So that's.
Yeah, it might have just been a little bit before its time. It didn't.
Yeah,
people didn't have that kind of like thought or interaction to it because there was like Need for Speed has done mobile games and kind of had that same thing, that interaction, that streamability thing, but that didn't come out till like 2017, 2018 or something like that. And this was what, 2010? You said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, predates it. I'm not surprised, but at the same time, I don't know.
I said, it's kind of like Evolve. It came out too soon for before everybody got onto the train of like asymmetrical like multiplayer, right? So
And at this point, it's only going to be like podcasts or like hangouts, like people like us that remember this game. We're like, oh, they should totally do that. I
yeah,
doubt they feel there's much of a market for it
yeah,
nowadays, but it
for
would be
sure.
cool.
It would be cool. And like, it's just the thing. You watch this and you're like, this is just a pretty mid racing game, right? But you had to be there to play it to be like experience the thrill of this thing. This thing is amazing. So, just like Stuntman meets Burnout. That's a good explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Other games that came out on the 18th. Uncharted Waters on the PC and what was that? PC 88? Is that the PC engine? PC 88?
Oh no, that is a whole different system, my friend.
All right. In 1990 in Japan, you gotta show a picture of that. Breath of Fire 3 on the PlayStation in 1998. That was the one I was gonna pick initially, but split second won over that one. Star Wars Episode 1, Racer on the N64 in 1999. Ace, and maybe you know this game, Gekido on the PlayStation X or the PlayStation in 2000. Dot Hack GU Volume 1 Rebirth PS2 in 2006. Punch Out on the Wii in 2009. Wow. All right. I feel like everybody had that computer at their house, but I'm pretty sure it just looks like it.
The tape deck next to it, that really takes you back.
I remember I saw a tape game of Transformers, and I don't know what system it was for, but it was a tape. It was a cassette tape of Transformers the game, which is interesting. Oh, that looks really good. I thought it was going to be like in monochrome or something.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad for the era. Definitely like on my screen, it's blown up. It doesn't look great. But for the time, like running on the PC 88 in 1990, like this isn't bad at all.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Uncharted Waters did have like a 30th anniversary
kind
of recently.
And I do remember this ad. There was a really cool ad for this. Like it was a 1-page spread on a magazine, I remember. Because that font is very memorable. Let's see here. A few other games to be released was Alan Wake on the 360 2010. Red Dead Redemption made its debut on PS3 and 360 in 2010. Trauma Team on the Wii in 2010. And The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt on the PC in 2015. If you guys don't know what Trauma Team is, it's the Wii like surgery game. I put that there because it was the first game I posted on YouTube on my channel.
Wait, Trauma Team, isn't that? You mean, is that the sequel to Trauma Center?
Yeah, it's like multiplayer team.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, but yeah, Trauma Center was really cool. I think it was one of the greatest ways to like utilize the Wii controller, right? So that's pretty fun. Disney for watching. If you ever watch this, don't sue us, but create another split second. The mouse is watching. See, this game's sick. All right. All right, next day. 5/19. What we got? Wolfenstein, The New Order on the PC in 2014. Well, since the Doom Dark Ages released, I figured that I would share this one. Congrats on Bethesda, another great title. But also the Doom beta for this 2 years before it came out on Doom 2016. So arguably this was the best reboot out of Wolfenstein because they had Return to Castle Wolfenstein before this on PS2, right? And I think Xbox. But this was the one that was like well received, and just what really carried like the series from this point on.
Yeah, this reboot was definitely one of my favorites as far as reboots go, like period across the board. Because I had certainly played like Wolfenstein 3D back in the day, and I played Doom, and that was me learning PC at an era when those were coming out as like a very young kid. Probably should have been playing them. But I remember when this came out, it was one of those things like I wasn't sure because the one before this was that PS3 disaster one, in my opinion, that I just did not care for. That had like the green like skeleton guy on the front. I forget. It had more like the supernatural powers.
I think that wasn't that Return to Castle Wolfenstein? No.
Yeah.
It was just Wolfenstein, but if that was the story for Return, then that would make sense. But nonetheless, this reboot was amazing. I love the cinematography, the voice actor for Blazkowicz. Like, I just loved this game and ended up loving New Colossus. And I know that James and I have talked all the time about Old Blood and all that. Like, this reinvigorated my entire interest in this series.
Okay, so the one that you're referring to was made by id and Raven Software. Okay, that was I now I know it was like one of the first PS3 games to be released. Okay, now I remember. Wow, how forgettable was that game? Holy crap! You said that one had powers and stuff.
I felt like it had more of a supernatural bent compared to
Okay.
like this one.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Granted,
I mean, I'm
started to eventually go because this was like we talked about the alternate history to
Yeah.
it. I really liked that take on it, what they did with it, and the gameplay was awesome. It was such a great return to form, and I loved this series just because of this game.
This game is pretty solid, and you and I did play through the Old Blood, which is like the sequel, not or expansion to this, right? I think it was a prequel to the main game. I can't remember where
Yeah,
it
it
fell
was
in
a
the timeline.
prequel story.
Yeah, single player story mode to it. It was pretty fun and it was pretty solid. Like the guns felt heavy. The gunplay felt pretty decent for what it was. Definitely felt very Doom like, but on the Wolfenstein level, right? So excuse me. But yeah. Hopefully they do like Heretic or Hexen with this because that seems to be their trend. They got Wolfenstein, they have Doom, maybe Unreal could do a reboot, but that's like who owns that now? Epic?
Yeah, I think Epic owns it.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, other games come out that day for the Nintendo. If you were a strategist like myself, unlike myself, I should say, Destiny of an Emperor was came out in 1989 in Japan. I think that was technically the prequel to Nobunaga's Ambition, Destiny of an Emperor. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace on the PC in 1999. I feel like a lot of people played that one. I can't remember what the reception was. I thought it was like what they call mid. Okay. PlanetSide on the PC. I know PlanetSide on the PC in 2003 because I was trying to get a LAN party for that game. They were calling it like the Halo Killer or something. Or no, that was Tribes 3. Never mind. But PlanetSide was the big like battleground, like futuristic battlefield game at that point. Bionic Commando got its reboot on the PS3 and 360 in 2009. And if you played Marvel vs. Capcom 3, that's the Bionic Commando that they're referring to in there. Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia on the 3DS in 2017, and Mafia the Definitive Edition on the PC in 2020. I think like that's probably a good sign that Mafia was introducing like the remasters. Like in 2020, the remasters were coming out slowly and surely. So, but yeah, I see Bionic Commando here for Ace. What's up with this? Ace, tell us about it.
Well, yeah. First off, it was developed actually by a third party. I think it was Grin Software,
outsourced.
But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This game did not get the best reception. It was, it not as many people as one might have thought actually, liked Biocom 09. Personally, I really enjoyed it. It was like one of the earlier games that I had gotten for the 360 back when it came out. And yeah, it was basically it. I'm hard pressed to say whether or not it was a retelling of the original Biocom or if this was just supposed to be a sequel.
It takes place 10 years after the original game.
10 years after?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's canon. Yeah. No, because OG Red Spencer does show up to support you, I think, in some way or form.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. But yeah, I mean,
shoot this guy. What's going on?
But yeah, I think it was a great sort of evolution to a lot of the mechanics from the original game because you had more that you could do with the arm as far as like grappling and area traversal, and also combining that with the different firearms that you could actually pick up. It made for some really interesting gameplay.
And Andre in the chat, very vocal about this game, saying this is the closest game we got for a Spider-Man game on that console.
Yeah.
What about Spider-Man 3? That didn't count?
I mean, I'd say up until like the I forget whether Spider-Man 3 was on the 360, but I know that Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 were on the PS3 and 360. But
I know Spider-Man 3 was definitely like a launch title for the PS3 because they share the same font for Sony PS3.
oh wait, that's right. That's right.
No, Andre did say a really interesting thing here. He said it came out during the time of Capcom's westernization arc. They did have a westernization arc for sure.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that it all started with Skyrim, right? And Skyrim was like the game that the Capcom looked at that was like, we need a game like this. We need to follow this kind of style. And, and I think that's why Dragon's Dogma had released because of that, but of course, it's Japanese culture, Japanese style of design, trying to emulate Western. It's gonna take a little bit longer, more study, not just instantly, just like that. Because you're gonna
there
have to
was
cater.
a lot of Japanese companies that started to make the leap to the Western markets just because they saw the success of a lot of games, because the market was getting bigger and bigger, more impressive every year, and games were changing. So it was definitely during that era where there was like some games that were kind of caught in this like I say old school mentality, but just this different mentality from a different era, and it evolved very quickly during just that generation. Like that was Capcom produced a lot of stuff, but that was like Street Fighter 4, MVC 3, Asura's Wrath, Dead Rising 2, like all that stuff, like trying to like break into the market, change it a little bit to kind of appeal more to a wider market. The DMC Devil May Cry reboot was also that same generation, but
I was gonna say I think that was their hard attack on the Western market, right? But we all know that's a whole different story.
so edgy.
Yeah, because here's the thing: I always argue that the game's not that bad, but it's not the game we asked for. Kind of like that's kind of how it was. I was just gonna say that Bionic Commando, like I feel like, kind of got. I was gonna put this as like it kind of one day outsourced the game. I think from majority of the reason. Right? And so maybe that's what they were going for. They're like, maybe if we have a Western designer help us design it, we can kind of understand, a little bit better of the Western audience reception. And clearly, and we repeat this on this podcast multiple times, Capcom, go with what you're good with and stick with it. That's why we love you.
Yep.
Right. So just, nothing wrong with experimenting, Dark Void. But like, that game's never been heard of ever again. When's my Chaos Legion 2, bro? Just all I'm saying.
Bruh.
So
but honestly, as far as Biocom goes, though, I would really like to see. I don't know. I think I would actually like to see this game right here remade. Like,
honestly, I think Biocom would be more fun. Hear me out. You ready? I'm gonna blow your guys' minds, and then Capcom should hire me. They should make it more arcade-like. Have the Bionic Commando of the past, future, and present, but make it into like a Cannon Spike type game. Right? You know what I'm talking about? You guys know what Cannon Spike is, right? But turn it into a Bionic Commando-ish type game. Now, I don't know what that means, but what I'm saying is turn Bionic Commando into arcade-ish instead of this like open world swinging around thing, because you're trying to compete with Spider-Man and Sucker Punch. That's not going to work.
Yeah, I think just games of this like an era are not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Nowadays, things have to kind of pick a lane. They're a lot more in-depth and complex. For me, it's got to go two directions, like a complete reimagining, go into it, or do what they've been doing with a lot of these like new like 2D style games, like bring back Bionic Commando and update it, kind of like what they're doing with the new Ninja Gaiden 2D one.
Yeah.
Do something like that with
cool.
Bionic Commando. I know they've done something like that before, but not like modernized it a little bit more like that one looks to be. I can see a market for that. It's just I don't think this has as much brand recognition or brand like currency anymore to really be a thing.
That's
at least
true.
At this point. Give it another like 5-10 years and it'll be off our minds and they'll come back with just like, hey, look at this thing we got. And you'll be like, I forgot about that.
What I was thinking as far as remaking this would, again, not make it, not making an such an open world game, make it, tighten it up, make it more mission focused, like say, like Devil May Cry 5 or Onimusha.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about that. Like what? Tell me about more. You know what I'm saying? But like I think as far as like budget goes and like and the notoriety of the game, like Bionic Commando is not gonna break a lot of copies. Like not a lot of people play Capcom games for Bionic Commando.
That's
is the
true.
other, is the thing what Nick is trying to say. It's like how much market share is there for this game, and like
Very
how many people know about it
in this brand anymore, kind of
yeah
thing.
So what I'm saying, what could be good, make a game like a search action game with this, kind of like a Hollow Knight or something. I think that'd be super fun, right? Prince of Persia did it. I think Bionic Commando can do it too. So
just to put it into like a little bit of just so we can move on really quick.
Yeah.
This company Grin at the same time, the games they released in the same like calendar year was Wanted Weapons of Fate, Bionic Commando, and Terminator Salvation. 3 like pretty mid like response kind of games, kind of had the same knocks against them, and they're all part of that same era. And that's not the knock the talent behind it that worked on it, but it was definitely like of the times, that game development, the thoughts, the ideas behind it. You can definitely see like why those didn't do too well and why they all kind of feel samey when you go over that list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because I will argue that Wanted is actually a pretty decent game.
Decent,
but it wasn't AAA. It was definitely like AA, right? So, and they're using a movie title license as well, and that can get pretty expensive. So, but yeah, that'd be a great like rhetorical, I think, to talk about like obscure franchises for sure. All right. Speaking of obscure franchises, on the 20th of May, Aliens versus Predator in the arcade came out, and it's gotta be the best Alien AVP game I've ever played. Not even close to any of the other ones. Not the first person shooter. No, this is it right here. Also, fun fact: Major Dutch Schaefer, that's Arnold right there from Predator 1. A lot of people don't know that, but that's him. That's the man. That's our boy.
This right here, this one needs a comeback.
Yeah,
sprites and everything.
Why is this not in any collection? Why is this not in the beat 'em up collection? And why is this locked into a stupid peripheral that's a joystick that can only be bought in Europe? It's so weird. You guys know about that?
No.
So you can look it up. There's a Capcom like arcade emulator, like a mini, right? But it's in the shape of a arcade stick, and it's in the shape of Capcom, like the Capcom logo. And there's games in it, and this is one of the games in it. And I'm like, why can't you release this as part of a collection somewhere? I know Disney owns this, and it makes sense, but at the same time, my goodness, we've been waiting for this game to come out again forever. It's over what, 30 years? It's crazy.
Seriously.
And
31 years.
Yeah, and Predator's a Disney princess. I get it, but dang.
There's some pretty fun games on that. I just found that.
Yeah, do you have a photo of it? Put that bad boy on the screen. Show the chat what we're talking about. I'm not crazy.
please enlighten the class.
This was a limited run release, not the brand company, but it was very limited as far as release goes, because not a lot of people knew about it, and I don't think they were thinking that people were going to buy it. I sure as hell wanted one, but it was kind of pricey at the time, and I had other investments to priorities, let's just say. But like this thing was. Yeah, this thing is. I wanted this. This is, as a Capcom like enthusiast, I really wanted this thing. But now it's like I think majority of the stock of this game, of this peripheral, is in Europe. Like you can't really find this anywhere in the West or the US. But look at that, 16 titles in there. Pretty cool. Beat 'em ups, got shmups in there. Is Varth in there? I don't see Varth in there, do I?
No.
Well, Giga Wings in there. Giga Wings, good.
Armored Warriors, Capcom Sports Club, Eco Fighters, Darkstalkers, Cyberbots, Captain Commando, Final Fight, Ghouls and Ghosts, Gigawing, Mega Man, The Power Battle, Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Strider, Street Fighter 2 Hyper, and Pro Gear.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. This right here. This collection just needs to be released outside of that peripheral. It's super cool. But yeah, I think what they were going for is an arcade experience. But like, kind of a weird to lock it to a joystick, especially a joystick that size. So, I can't confirm if the joystick works by itself on a fighting game. I don't know if it does. Let's see here. So while we're watching this thing, Burning Fight in the arcade in 1991. That's another good beat 'em up by Neo Geo in Japan. Aliens versus Predator, of course, like as shown on the screen there. I really, speaking of subpar games that were a product of its time, Haze on the PS3 in 2008. Yeah, that was an interesting one. The Darksiders collection came out on pretty much anything on 2014. And a tiny little game called Drakengard 3 on the PS3 in 2014. Not a big day for May 20th. So
I gotta link you back to the review that Duder and I did for Haze.
Oh yeah. You should put it in the chat. If you got it, put it in the chat. I do remember that one.
Yeah,
You guys did what was it? The Hooligans.
Mhm.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah. But yeah, Ace, you got some notes on Drakengard 3 here. Of course, one of the more rare games on the PS3.
Oh yeah, and Drakengard 3 was an interesting one, largely because, when I first heard about it and wanted to go pick it up, I was curious as to how it would link back to the other games, or how it would link back to Nier, link back to the mothership. But I picked up Drakengard 3 and it was so off the beaten path compared to the other two, just between the characters that you're dealing with, like Zero and her sisters, and just how, I don't know, it felt like Drakengard 3 was trying to be an edgier Drakengard 1 and 2, which is saying a lot because Drakengard 1 and 2 were fucking depressing.
I do appreciate Andre's comment as well. Of all the video games of all time, it was certainly one of them.
It was a game.
It was a game.
Yeah. This is how rare this game is. First of all, a fun fact for this game was this was I think one of the first games to get the rare PS3 blue label, because they decided to switch it to the blue label instead of the black label.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the box art, you'll notice the PS3 has a blue label, not a black one. Also, since it's so rare, it even had a collector's edition that was only sold through their Square Enix store. And guess how much a new one would cost if you left it sealed, and also one that would be complete, that's open and used. That's a hint. There's a hint. Under 1,000 for new.
No guess for this. It's got to be. I don't know why. Like, its sales numbers are not that low.
I'm thinking maybe 500, 550.
For a new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, you looked it up, huh? So a new one right now on eBay, it's I think someone had posted it for like $600 for brand new. And then a complete one is floating around 300, which is an opened one, for a game that was just a game. That's kind of interesting, isn't it, Andre? That a game that was just kind of is that expensive. So I think it was because, like I said, multiple things, and one of them was the fact it had that blue label on it, and they stopped doing it after a while. So this is like one of those few rare games that have the blue label for PS3.
Yeah, when I saw the blue label, I thought it was going to wind up being like a, kind of like their greatest hits thing.
Yeah, because typically it's red, right? So, and I think they just wanted to match with the
other color, because on the PS1, the greatest hits labels were green. PS2, the greatest hits labels were red. So, I was thinking it might have been blue for the PS3.
I don't remember. Well, this game came out with a blue label, brand new. So it can't be greatest hits if it's blue, But yeah, I can see where I can see where that would lead you to believe. But I do know they were trying to match the branding for PS4, because the PS4 had already released, right? I just remember seeing this at the store when we worked there, Nick. I was like, blue labels. What the heck? I was like, this is kind of ugly. Can you imagine collecting PS3 games forever and then all of a sudden you have blue labels instead of black? We're just like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same, like a couple different. I remember very clearly you mentioned that there was a couple producers, not producers, but like publishers that would release their lines like reversed as well. So you'd have like this perfect collection of like alphabetized, shit on your walls, and there'd just be this one limb was like friggin' upside down and backwards. You're like, why? Why
Yep.
would you do this to me? Or
Yep.
they did the transition over to Series X when that released. They're still releasing Xbox One games, but then they changed the spine again for some of them because, like, oh, you can play it on any of them, and you're like, Grand
I remember that.
thing. I just found a subreddit post about these blue label games. They only had it during that time. They're collectibles for that reason because people are collecting subsets. It's just a random subset.
There we go. All right, I knew it. I knew it had something to do with that. Oh, you nerds and making things expensive. I love you.
Strangely enough, according to this as well, it did not happen in Europe with these blue labels. It was only in the US that they had
only in the
blue
US.
labels.
But why though? Whose idea was that? Sony HQ. You were just trying to preserve a job. And now you're probably fired. All right. Speaking of people getting fired, oof. We all know that Dauntless was recently discontinued, but I wanted to celebrate its release on May 21st, 2019, because this was the alternate to Monster Hunter series, right? This was the game. It was free to play, right? And it was just like Monster Hunter. So if you wanted to play Monster Hunter at home, Dauntless was there for you. And I do remember switching to this when I think like I was playing Monster Hunter Ultimate, 3 Ultimate. Then I was like, all right, let me switch up to Dauntless because I was like, there's no more content left. So I was playing it on. Any experience with Dauntless, guys? Any memories with Dauntless?
I was playing, like I was still like neck deep in Monster Hunter World when Dauntless came out, but like the moment I heard about it, at the very least wanted to give it a shot because I thought it looked interesting, and the available weapons that they had and the ones that they continued to come out with were pretty solid. I mean, one thing that I would say Dauntless had over Monster Hunter, it has gauntlets. I punch monsters in the face. When I couldn't get that fix on Monster Hunter, I went to Dauntless, and I pretty much mained the gauntlets and it was the gauntlets, the Ostian repeaters, or the handguns, and the rocket hammer.
So, I mean, looking at this game right now, it makes me feel like we're watching like some Fortnite, early pics of Fortnite, right? But I don't know, was Fortnite already out when this game came out? I think so,
Mm-hmm.
right? But this was like the popular art style.
Dauntless was 2019.
Yeah. This was the popular art style at the time. I have solid good memories of this game. Just playing with friends, just having a good time. It is very grindy as all free to play games are, for sure. But that's the whole point. Monster Hunter in itself is grindy already. To my understanding, were these stages kind of dynamic also? Did stuff happen to the stage or something? Or no? Maybe that was a different game.
I don't know. I had no experience with this. So if you have a quick way to tell me what happened, I see Scorpio in chat as well, just saying like, loved the game before they ruined it. Like, I don't know everything that happened with this. What destroyed it?
Yeah, I can't say I played it past 2020. So Scorpio, enlighten us, please. They made it open map.
But aside from,
I did sorry, go ahead, Ace.
Aside from making it open map, though, I did try like getting onto it for a little bit before they sunset it, and like the way they basically nuked character progression and just completely tried to rewrite it. Like the way they tried to rewrite character progression and working with your weapons. I mean, they actually made it to where they took a lot of the crafting out of Dauntless, because it used to be that you could craft one of each weapon type from a specific monster, like in Monster Hunter.
Yep, that's what I remember it. Yep.
But now, at the time at sunset, it was literally, you only have certain specific weapons that you're able to grind. So there wasn't, various different types of, longsword that you could equip for, any given situation. It was just you had that longsword and that had an element. You had that one hammer that had an element and one specific design. Same with the guns, same with the gauntlets.
From what I'm seeing here, just as a hey, cool little history lesson for myself and for anyone who chat is not familiar with it. It looks like the big reasons this kind of flopped and why it went the way it did, in addition to Scorpio, shout out to you to calling this out in chat. But competition from Monster Hunter, obviously. Changes in controversy. So there was tons of like heavy shifts in the design philosophy during the gameplay, during the game's like lifespan. Some of them were poorly received by the community, and the company was slow to change. In addition, change in leadership, focus on short-term profits, lack of content, and then slow improvements on top of that, and perception of lack of developer support, because apparently there are multiple people, I'm seeing like old posts from like 4 or 5 months ago on the subreddit for it, but a lot of people were kind of had this sense that it felt like there was no direction for the game. It was just trying whatever it could, wasn't sticking to things, and then would reverse a change that people liked back to an old thing that just didn't work. It sounds like they weren't listening to their community and just trying to focus on those profits.
Yeah, it from what you just said, it sounds like a new head came in and said, "Hey, we need to turn this thing around, and we need to do it with X amount of resources, and I don't want to spend too much time on this thing. What trends are there out right now that we can make a short buck, right?" And that's why, and then they had no or very little resources to implement such things. That's why it took so long. And it sounds like they focused on the short-term rewards, like monetization, probably in DLC and stuff like that. So I can see why people stop playing, because you can feel that in a game, right? Especially a game you've been playing each day, and all of a sudden it's changed, and you're like, "Oof, I don't know if I want to keep playing this." That's honestly one of the reasons why I stopped playing Destiny 2. And so I kind of stopped that, like that, from that vibe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I can see that. And for me with Destiny, it was just like the lack of content, which seems to be the reason that Dauntless also failed. There wasn't like new content updates. It didn't bring out new weapons. It was just the same stuff recycled, or it was stuff that didn't make any sense. So
not even that, man. Like, I don't want to get into it too deep, but the thing that really got me out of Destiny 2 was I bought the Witch Queen, right? And I started realizing I bought an expansion, but then I also have to buy a season pass with that expansion. I felt ultimately ripped off, like from that. So I was just like, I don't want to do this 3 more times. So I'm spending like $90 each time to keep playing this game that, like you said, lack content after you finish the storyline. So,
and I love the Witch Queen storyline. I remember playing that, beating that. I'm like, wow, that was refreshing. I can't wait to dive back into this. Then you're immediately plopped back down on the planet, and you're doing the same thing you've done every single expansion. Now you're just doing your dailies, and then you're just doing the grind. It's like, oh, I've done this like 7, 8 times. Like, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
And like, not to say that there wasn't new things, but it was just like, it still kind of fell back into that. Okay, well, now go do your dailies. It's time for your dailies, honey.
And it was quality though. It felt good to play it, right? There just wasn't enough things to do aside from PvP and Gambit and stuff like that.
Which is so great. We're going to be talking about Marathon later.
Let's go. Anyway, other games that came out on the 21st, Hunter the Reckoning on Xbox in 2002. If you guys don't know what Hunter the Reckoning is, I would suggest checking it out. It's kind of like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, but with vampires and werewolves, I believe, like Van Helsing. Lost Kingdoms 2 on the GameCube in 2003. I think that was a card game. Like, it used used card mechanics on that. Knockout City came out on everything in 2021. Yeah, definitely during COVID. I remember this game. It's like dodgeball, but like Dodgeball World, right? So it was a free to play dodgeball game that was kind of like I don't know. It's very arcadey, and it was super fun to play. Also, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 came out on the PC and Xbox Series X in 2024. And another game, RIP, the X Defiant on the PC, PS5, on the Xbox Series X in 2024. That game was barely out a year and it's shut down already. You guys know what X Defiant is?
I only heard the name maybe like once or twice.
Well, that's the first mistake of X Defiant. What's the second mistake of X Defiant? Nick, you know what X Defiant is?
No.
Oh man, that's rough. So X Defiant was Ubisoft's answer to Call of Duty. They said they hired a bunch of like Modern Warfare 1 devs, I think, to like say we want to bring back Call of Duty to its roots, like team deathmatch and stuff. Paid for by Ubisoft, our friends at Ubisoft, right? And I think it was just a little too late, man. They were going against a monster. And they didn't have enough marketing power to fight against it. But because you look at this game, you're like, this looks kind of like Haze. Like it looks kind of plain Jane, right? Its main strength, honestly, is the gameplay. It just felt like Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. But like, man, if you're like years late behind, you're gonna have to play catch up. And it was a free to play game. So therefore, it's going to require a lot of support and a lot of like overhead, right, to keep that support. Unfortunately, it didn't have enough support, so they had to take it down and focus on other things because Ubisoft is kind of bleeding right now. So unfortunately, I played it for a little bit. I did get my Call of Duty like fill. Like this place feel pretty good for team deathmatch, but aside from that, that's it. Like I didn't spend any money on it. Once you kind of get that like. That you kind of complete that fill. That's it.
If like a large percentage of the player base feels the same way that what you just said, you said free to play, right? If no one's buying anything, they can't afford to keep this going. Especially
correct.
Up to like a large scale.
Correct. And here's the thing, right? They weren't trying to be notorious with like power ups or anything like that. Of course, it's going to be skins, right? Cosmetics is the number one that's safe to do, but just not enough because like. Why spend money on this if I already started playing Call of Duty and I spent a lot of money on that already? It's rough. That's why I say the catch up is rough for these type of games. So good try though, X Defiant. Good try. All right, next one. On the 22nd, it was in the future, 2 days from now, is the future of birth of Pac-Man, our legendary Puck-Man from Japan. So if you guys ever watch that scene in Scott Pilgrim, it's like, hey, Pac-Man was called Puck-Man in Japan. This reminds me of that all the time.
Paku.
Yep. Of course, it wasn't gonna fly for the US, so they changed the name to Pac-Man, Puck-Man. So, all right, guys, I want to hear your Pac-Man stories right now.
I just remember the old arcade cabs, the ones where you'd sit down like at it and be the
on the screen right there
on either side. That was a lot of my childhood. There was one at the like the sports bar my family went to in Chicago, and I just remember like sitting at that thing and trying to play the game and just watching the Ghost and Pac-Man like roll across it. I just have a lot of fond memories of that. That's probably one of the reasons working at the retro store, I've always just loved like those old arcade cabs we'd have those original ones. It's just something about it, man. And it's the same reason that still to this day, I like playing the 4-player versus Pac-Man.
Championship edition.
Yeah. It just kind of sticks in my head. Just something really cool about it. Never very good at it once I got, a little bit faster in some of those later levels. But I've always had really fond memories of it, man. It's just from my childhood.
Right on. Ace?
Same here. It's always like Pac-Man was always one of the first games that I would see whenever I would step into the pizza place. So I'd walk in the door and like all the older games were lined up along the wall by the door. So it was Galaga, Centipede, Pac-Man, Final Fight.
Okay.
And
two Namco games, one Williams game, and a Capcom game. Interesting arcade.
Well, again, those were just the older ones. And I mean,
yeah,
I'd stop, pop a quarter in Pac-Man, try to see how long I'd go, and then, go from there to NBA Jam or X-Men versus Street Fighter or Super Off-Road. But Pac-Man was always like a good sort of comfy appetizer kind of game once I got to the arcade.
Yeah, it's a beginner's game. You want to dip your toes in video games.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Right on. I mean, I don't really have any amazing stories of Pac-Man, but I do recall seeing it in the arcade and giving it a shot. Arguably, the better Pac-Man game is Miss Pac-Man because it was 2 players co-op and competitive at the same time. Never really understood Pac-Man because I was like, why am I just eating ghosts? Like, what's the story here, right? So, but apparently, if you watch that new secret level episode, or that not new, but that secret level episode, it tells you a lot about Pac-Man. So watch it, check it out. Make sure you watch it right before you go to bed too. It's a little bit better. So, but yeah,
and also keep your eye out for Shadow Labyrinth.
Yeah. Shadow Labyrinth is the kind of like the modern take on Pac-Man as well. Kind of. But yeah, nothing too crazy. We all know it's the legendary video game, right? It's the first video game everybody talks about when it comes to video games, either that or Tetris, or those first name pioneers of gaming. Thanks to Namco now makes Tekken 8, right? That's crazy. So it's hard to see that like they made Pac-Man and now they have Tekken and like all these other crazy Namco games. So it's kind of wild. The song that we heard too in the beginning was the 40th anniversary, called Join the Pack. That was a really fun song. Check it out if you guys can, and that's about it for Pac-Man.
Still surprising when they actually added him as a character in Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
Yeah, that was interesting for sure. And a Mokujin like
Mokujin.
Yeah, and then they did have a Pac-Man RPG. I think it was called Pac-Land at some point on the Super Nintendo. Pretty interesting. Like I said, don't know too much about the lore, why the ghosts hate him so much. Maybe Pac-Man's the bad guy. Maybe Pac-Man owes them money, right? We don't know. So and they're just trying to collect, right? So all right, other games that came out, just in case you didn't know what it was. Another game that really set off the gaming industry, arguably, Solitaire on the PC in 1999. So if you guys had a PC back in the day, you either had Space Pinball or Solitaire or Minesweeper, one of the 3. So congrats. Final Fight 2 on the Super Nintendo in 1993 in Japan. Unreal, talked about Unreal earlier, on the PC in 1998. Perfect Dark 64 on the N64 in the year 2000. Red Faction in 2001 on the PS2. Odin Sphere on the PS2 in 2007. That's another great Vanillaware title. There it is, Dragon's Dogma on the PS3 and 360 in 2012. Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Future Soldier on the PS3, 360 in 2012. Mega Man Legacy Collection and 1 and 2 came out on the Switch in 2018. Man Eater, where you play as a shark, on PC and PS4, Xbox One on 2020. And also the TurboGrafx 16 mini console released that day as well. So I do own one. If I can find it, I'll show it to you. But Ace, you have a story about Dragon's Dogma. Please do share, because I love that game.
Oh, yet another game that we reviewed on the Hooligans. But like we were talking about, Capcom's westernization arc, and I think I honestly want to say that my favorite game of the Western Capcom line has got to be Dragon's Dogma. That the story was a little opaque, but still, pretty interesting once you started digging further into it, and once you once you just started, exploring the world, after you built your character, you meet the pawns. But what always got me about Dragon's Dogma was the combat. Like, it was so, it was great for, action games and action RPGs. It felt like how, honestly, it felt like how I would have loved to see something like Skyrim or Dragon Age play. Something a little bit more action oriented. The different classes that were available were pretty solid too. Like, I really liked the Striker. Let's see, the Striker, the Magic Knight, and the Magic Archer were my 3 favorites. But one of two of my best memories with Dragon's Dogma outside of reviewing it were, the first time I actually had one of my friend's pawns join me, and the way he had this pawn kitted out, like I was just walking around minding my own business, chucking goblins off the edge of cliffs and stuff, and then I hear this boom, boom, boom. I look back and I am just seeing meteors like falling on the field.
They must have been a sorcerer.
What did I do?
It was either that or the giant like whirlwind tornado that was summoned.
But yeah, that was my introduction to how busted the sorcerer can get.
Yeah, it did require a little bit of charge time, so like it was balanced in that way. And I'm sure it sounds like you were talking about the pawn system. One of the more unique things about this game that hasn't really been replicated yet on another game. The idea that there is a hub for adventurers that you can summon and recruit all across the gaming sphere of Dragon's Dogma is really cool. Mm-hmm. So what Ace was saying is that if he had a pawn created and I could play a game and I could download his pawn, and his pawn would tell me about things that they've seen on his adventures in my game. So like if I'm crossing this cave and he's like, yeah, this cave is familiar. There's a secret chest over there. Follow me. Right? That's super cool. Like, and I think that's probably why, honestly, that this game didn't get multiplayer, is because they didn't want to take away from the idea of the pawns being like your multiplayer companion. Right? But I'm going to argue, Capcom, because that's what I do, is, I think being the playable pawn in your friend's game would have been the great multiplayer part.
Yes. I agree. Like that would have been dope.
Yeah.
Like Link Party before Link Party.
Yeah. And so and then once you leave his game, you go to your game and your pawn is now just your NPC, like your companion. You still have the memories, you still have the data, right? But now at least like you have physically seen those areas because you're the pawn also, Yeah. So I think that was a missed opportunity there.
The other thing I really dug about Dragon's Dogma was, technically it wasn't in the game, but when you got down to playing it on PC and especially like Dark Arisen, and you started getting into the modding, because the last time I played this on Steam, I had found the mods to actually make a full-on martial artist class in Dragon's Dogma. And
of course. Of course. You start filling out those surveys and all these developers, man. Just be like, martial arts class, please. Martial arts class, please.
I have.
They're like, what? A class that has no equipment? Lame.
Like, oh no, it has equipment.
Claws and gloves.
Right.
And then
last thing I'll say about Dragon's Dogma, intro was banging.
Right. So, fun fact: the intro was removed in the Dark Arisen because the contract had expired, the license had expired to use that song in another game.
And we modded it back in.
Yes, they modded it back in. All right. So why we can't have good things. All right. Moving on to the next day here. We got ourselves the notorious Overwatch game that took the world by storm upon its release, including myself. I had bought the collector's edition. I was all about the game, the characters, the lore. I was in this game. I was involved. I fell in love with this game, the characters, the world, and everything. It's just one of those games that has a time limit. If your friends stop playing, you stop playing. And if you hate losing, don't play this game, because you're gonna lose a lot. A lot. You get salty in multiplayer games. Don't play this game. I'm telling you that right now. So last time when we talked about what was the other game from 2K that was like this? Battleborn. And Overwatch had released almost simultaneously at the same time. But Overwatch had the better CG trailers for the characters. And that's what really captured my attention and away from that. I mean, they had Pixar level quality story lore for their characters.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so cool. Like, is this like, is there a single player? Then you find out it's only like a multiplayer game. We're like, oh man, come on. But you still want to play it because you're just attached to it.
Oh no.
That was,
like,
yeah.
The moment I saw that there wasn't a single player or like a campaign for Overwatch, that took me out. I was done.
No, it definitely wasn't great. And it's like and it's an online only game. Like, whenever you see an online only game, there is going to be a time frame on this game. Like, clearly as stated now, 2017, 2025, what's that, 8 years? Right?
Mhm.
Overwatch 2 is flopping because of Marvel Rivals. That tells you right there, like, there is a time limit on these type of games. Even Marvel Rivals is a time limit. It's all I'm going to say, right? So, they did get my money, man, and then I think this was my first experience with loot boxes, also in gaming. So that was a very controversial topic. So,
for me, it was Battlefront.
Oh, Star Wars Battlefront,
yeah,
and that had come out before,
loot
right?
Boxes. Yeah.
Yeah,
well, that
so
was
that
one
was,
where that's what caused so much of the pushback was because of what a Battlefront did, because it was so aggressive, and the I think it was the loot rates or the win rates were shown, and it was just like not good.
they were predatory, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, for what it is, for its time, I think Overwatch was one of the great games to come out that time, right? For its genre, for its type. So I don't know about you guys.
I mean, to me, it felt like it completely revitalized any kind of interest in like 5v5 and hero shooters, right? Were just because of this, I wanted to play it. You know, this was a while after I had been going through my Counter-Strike phase when I was younger. So I, hyper competitive still. So I wanted to be good at this, and it felt like it was good to start. But yeah, like you said, man, if you don't like to lose, it's not a fun game.
Not a fun game.
If you don't have a squad to roll with, because you're out there like trying to lone wolf it or trying to get people to communicate with you, and it did not work. It did not make it fun for me as an individual player when a lot of my friends weren't into it. And then when some friends got into it, I was already done. So, and I wasn't going to go back. I wasn't going to make that mistake again.
Yeah. Also, the thing that everybody got upset with this was this game was a $40 game when that came out. So that was another thing that they were like, okay, I'm spending $40 on this game. All right. And then when Overwatch 2 came out, they were like, well, if you own the first one, we're going to credit you some whatever credits on Overwatch 2 because it's free. Right. So, yeah.
So the base edition was 40. The Origins edition was 60.
Yeah. And that just had extra DLC in it from whatever. Skins, stickers, all
and
the
then
above.
There was a physical collector's edition that was 130.
Yeah. Like I said, I was all in on this game. I have that one. You get a bronze statue of Soldier 76 from the collector's edition. What's more impressive is actually the art book. Go ahead, Dace.
It makes me think, because like Overwatch, I could definitely say, even though I didn't play it, it kind of, serves as a sort of timestamp, a sort of checkpoint, because around the same time as Overwatch was coming out, SNK was actually starting to make waves, and they were coming out with KOF 14 around the same time. So at the job that I was at, the big talk amongst me and some of my coworkers was pretty much going between, Overwatch and like the different character trailers that were coming out, and the different raps that Dan Bull was coming out with for the different characters on Overwatch on YouTube. Please check those out. There's some great stuff. But it was that, and then simultaneously there were also, the different character trailers coming out for KOF 14 around the same time. But I say this to say that, at the time, again, I was really looking forward to getting into Overwatch until I found out that there wasn't a campaign for it, that it was just strictly, online only and strictly PvP. So that kind of took me out. And what I wound up getting into, because I was looking for something to fill, the niche that I thought Overwatch would have, that was partly how I wound up getting into Warframe.
Yeah. Nice. And that's good.
So
And
one of the things we like talking about in this podcast and with our community here is always just kind of like a little bit of gaming history, a little bit of gaming news, a little bit of just kind of framing the industry that we love so much and kind of just having like big conversations and discussions about it, right? And the big thing we got to recognize with this game is that even though if it wasn't for us and the stories we just told, it sold over 50 million copies.
Yeah.
One of the best-selling games of all time. It
Mhm.
generated over $1 billion in revenue in the first year. Not only that, it was a huge player base. According to this, there was over 30 million registered players in his first year, 50 million after 3 years.
Mhm.
The Overwatch league that was established because of that, the whole esports like success with this, and then like the cultural impact as well, just because there was a lot of really good characters. Like James said at the top of this, that was one of the reasons we keep citing Concord as failing, is that the characters didn't feel really realized. They didn't feel like their own unique characters that you wanted to get to know. And this is what Overwatch had in spades.
Right.
Like all of them
Overwatch
had
set the bar
personalities to go
high.
with their gameplay. Right. So like this is still kind of the gold standard for that. Like even though I didn't put that much time to it, you still, as someone in the industry, you recognize some of the names of these heroes still, even after all this time, even if you haven't put that much time into it, because they were memorable, because the marketing was so good in it, and Blizzard being Blizzard really lead into that fact, especially with like cinematics and stuff. They made it more memorable.
yeah, you can tell they put effort into to make people love this game, and it shows. It shows, right? Of course, like I said, with that many, like that big of a player base, people are gonna find, or some people are gonna find some flaws on it,
Oh,
right?
sure.
That's just the reality of it. But overall, good experiences, good memories with this game, and I can tell this is an early version of the game because Hanzo still has that scatter shot, which was extremely changed over time because it was too good.
Oh yeah, I pulled up Origin specifically because
Yeah.
that's what we had.
Yeah, that I just remember that thing being a nightmare. You get stuck in a hallway with Hanzo, you're like, oh man, I'm dead. That's what it was. Anyway, more PTSD. Let me go ahead and switch to the next. All right. Actually, no, hold on. Let me go back because we missed on the other games. So other games that came out this day was Digimon World on the PlayStation in 2000, Nightmare Creatures 2 on the PlayStation in 2000, Guilty Gear X2 on the arcade in 2002 in Japan, Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones in the Game Boy Advance in 2005, Super Mario Galaxy on the Wii in 2010, Tropico 5 on the PC in 2014, and most recently Warhammer 40K Bolt Gun on everything in 2023. There it is, Ace. Why should people play this game aside from loving Digimon?
Ugh. Well, I'm gonna be real with you. The first Digimon World was very dense,
Okay.
right? Like it leaned a lot more heavily into the monster training sim. So while it was still an RPG, you definitely did have to focus on making sure that you kept your Digimon fed, that you made sure that they weren't sitting in their own poop for too long when they did go poop.
Poopmon.
But also you had to make sure that you had to keep a really close eye on your Digimon's lifespan. Like it was very much a if you don't take care of your Digimon, it doesn't matter how far you've got them leveled up, they will die. Just straight up die.
Like your Tamagotchi.
Yep. Now, while it was Digimon World 2, and from there on that, leaned more into the, JRPG aspects of the game, Digimon World 1 is still a pretty solid game to pick up because actually, yeah, Scorpio just said it. It's like a much more in-depth Monster Rancher.
Oh, we all know how you love Monster Rancher.
Yes, I
Let's see here.
like out of all the like monster breeding games that were coming out at around the same time, pretty much everybody else, at least in my friend circles, were like, Pokemon, ride or die. I was the kid sitting off in the corner like, yo, Agumon, let's go fuck some shit up.
I love sifting through my room because I find some random shit. Like I just found a copy of Armed and Dangerous. You guys remember that game?
Oh yeah.
And then I found this in the corner. I was like, "Oh, that's cool! I have that."
Yes.
I didn't know I owned that. That's pretty cool. All right, move on to the last day of coolness. 524, the best game in the world, arguably. Flappy Bird came out on the iOS in 2013. Why? Why, GQ? Why did you pick this game out of all other games that came out that day? All right, let me explain. One, there's not that many games that came out this day. And two, this game came out and it was like everybody played it. And the guy that made it lost his mind because everybody played it. So he got instantly rich and popular for creating this game. And this is one of those things where you just find like that thing that people love. And man, for $1, this guy became a millionaire after this. So what's your guys' experience with Flappy Bird? Did you play it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What do you guys think about this whole situation?
Never played it.
I played it. I will say what the word that pops in my head is viral. Because this thing was like super sudden, out of nowhere, everyone was playing it kind of thing. And I just remember like the amount of games that came out that were just trying to like ride the wave of Flappy Bird fame. Like just take a different sprite, put it over it, and just try to keep that thing alive as it goes through whatever level. Like crazy. I looked it up when you said like how much it sold. Apparently the guy who devved it was reporting of earning approximately $50,000 per day from in-app advertising during its peak popularity.
What?
Yeah. And the guy, he couldn't handle the popularity that he actually had to take the game down. That's like, I mean, and that it kind of goes deeper than just gaming. Like that goes to show you that like some people cannot handle that much attention and also that much money at the in almost overnight. Right. So we talk about like, I wish I was rich. Right. But sometimes there's a curse behind those things that we want. But for a guy to have like, because people were arguing, I remember like I saw the articles. They were like, this guy, the comments in the comment section of the articles, this guy's insane. This guy's a millionaire. Why is he complaining? You know, like, and I was like, bro, we're not him. We don't know. Right. What's going on through his head. But hopefully the debt recovers and he's probably set now.
Yeah. It says here that he removed it. Because he felt guilty over what he considered to be the game's addictive nature and overusage. Apparently, as well, thanks to that, and because of how popular it was at the time, I do remember hearing something about this, but seeing this here is crazy as well. It caused phones with the game still installed before its removal to be put up for sale for high prices over the internet.
Yep.
People were selling the phones of Flappy Bird. It's like the people selling the consoles with PT on it still.
Yep. Yep, I was one of them. Got him. Got him. Nerds. That's right, nerds. Fall into my trap, my capitalistic trap. Anyway, so here's the long list of games that came out the 24th. Metal Max on the Nintendo in 1991 in Japan. Apparently, they made like a new one not too long ago, Metal Max Neo. This was a tank RPG. Super interesting, right? Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the GBA in 2004. Dawn of Mana on the PS2 in 2007. And Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon. Came out on everything. That was one of the Kickstarters. Finally released in 2018. And that was it. It's a Saturday. Slow day. What can you say? And that, folks, is our This Week in Gaming History.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I know. All right. So stuff that doesn't make sense and will make sense once we get this quick bites and get the clarity from the rumor mill here. I can't talk tonight with our boy Tragic. Let's roll, baby. It's a nice one. What you got for us?
I got news. Let's make it nice and casual this week for everyone. Don't want to get too much like I'm just talking at you. So let's have fun with the stuff we saw happen this last week. Ace, we were talking kind of recently about Stellar Blade, right? How much you like it. They're selling those crazy figures for it, which I'm guessing you still haven't bought. Because remember, some of them are sold out Good luck, right? During a company presentation, during the presentation with their documents, developers shift up. Wow, great start, guys. The team behind 2024 Stellar Blade chatted about upcoming schedule plans. So we got to see what they have kind of like, cooking in the back end. In addition to that game's planned platform expansion, a new title labeled as Project Witches, the dev has listed the sequel for the game for Stellar Blade, expected to release before 2027. So, everything's kind of subject to change. These are just plans of it right now, but it looks like a sequel is in the works. So Stellar Blade 2, and this is not a rumor, it's in their documents. We'll see when we get it, but kind of cool news. Helldivers 2 Heart of Democracy update is now live, if you didn't know that, if you're still not playing that game right now. I remember us kind of talking about it last week. That was because the update was accidentally revealed early. Shout out to PlayStation for that. Well, now it's live, and the Illuminate fleet has invaded Super Earth, so now's a great chance to revisit and check out new locations and protect space democracy. Naughty Dog has confirmed that a secret second game is being developed alongside Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. We talked about this before in our rumor mill section, as there were kind of rumors flying around about this. Not only that, the rumors were that this wasn't Last of Us 3, and the director that's working on this mystery game was supposedly the same director behind Last of Us and Uncharted. Well, studio head Neil Druckmann has at least confirmed that this game is real, it is happening, and he's working as a producer in a mentor role on the team. So something's being made in the background, some super secret stuff. We'll see what happens, but it is real, folks. So we know that numbers are only part of a picture for a game's release, but we're seeing some differences in Doom: The Dark Ages player numbers. So it's worth kind of talking about and see what you guys think. Not only are the numbers a little bit different compared to the reboot trilogy, but it's down. The prequel title's player count via Steam database has an all-time peak of just over 31,000. Doom 2016 peaked at 44,271, and that's dwarfed by Doom Eternal, which sits at 104,891. So this isn't a direct reflection on if a game is good or not, but the two previous Doom titles did see a drop off by the second week, and we're only in the first week, and it looks like this is the peak, and it's already going down. So these are only the Steam numbers, but could this mean that Dark Ages just isn't hitting as hard? What do you guys think?
I got something to say if Ace doesn't.
I mean, it's that honeymoon period. New game releases. Everyone's rushing to play it. Everyone's rushing to try and complete it. And after a certain point, the player count's going to kind of dip for the people that are going to stick around with the game more long term. Whether they're going to go through and not just beat it, but complete it, go for the platinum trophies and everything.
Yeah, the articles that are calling this out do point to the fact the first weekend of a release is usually when they see that big kind of like player count, because people are getting eyes on it and want to jump into the game. But that's not what we're talking about right now. Do we think that Doom: The Dark Ages just isn't going to be as strong as the other two? These numbers are just one indication. James, you said you had something to say?
Yeah. So actually, Andre said something on the chat here. Dark Ages has been positive to mixed as far as reviews go. And I've watched some gameplay on this game, and from what I'm fresh off the Doom train on 2016. One of the things they changed was there's no glory kills, and that was a big one. I was like, whoa, there's no glory kills. That was one of the coolest things, in Doom. So that was one of the big changes I think that affected a lot of people. But I'll jump right into what I was going to say. The lack of Mick Gordon in this game shows, and all I see on my algorithm on YouTube is that this game is sick, but the music is kind of mid, kind of sucks, right? And so this is what the interesting part was. They played the actual music when they were playing, then they added Mick Gordon's track from Doom Eternal, and it was like way better. And I was like the girl that was playing was like, I just want to kill demons. So it was like the music really matters in this game, and to have two games that have that and this one, I think the people that are not playing it now miss Mick Gordon. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I will say leading up to it, I didn't put as much like thought into that, so that's a really good point you bring up. I know for me, when I saw the original trailers for it, I love the new weapons. Like the whole
Mhm.
thing about
Yeah.
a gun that grinds up a skull that shoots like skull shards at things. That is super metal. Like that's exactly what I wanted out of a Doom game. And putting the chainsaw on the shield, I thought was a really fun twist too.
Super cool
Like
too.
so those things always call out to me, but now that you mentioned the music, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the reason I love the other two so much and how it fed into that gameplay loop. We've talked about that before. It's great videos out there. Thank you. Great,
Yep.
great insight. Nintendo's back, baby. Well, at least at Gamescom, they are. The company had skipped the annual event last year, so fans visiting the event that couldn't get their pre-orders on the Nintendo Switch 2 will likely get to play around on whatever the company decides to show off this year. They're coming back to Gamescom. Nothing has been confirmed yet as far as what they're bringing, but with it taking place in August, maybe some of those unannounced projects we haven't heard about could be on the menu. Speaking of Nintendo, the company has also apologized for their marketing mistake regarding VRR capabilities for the Switch 2. Variable refresh rate is on the Switch 2, but it's limited. VRR is only applicable in handheld mode. So that's a little bit of a downgrade from what we were expecting. We thought we were going to get variable refresh on the docked mode, but it's only in handheld. Kind of an interesting decision. Activision has made the decision, speaking of, to shut down support for Call of Duty Warzone Mobile. Now, the noteworthy thing about this and why we're kind of bringing up this little tidbit is that the reason is because the game didn't meet their expectations. The mobile first players, they said rather, with quote, mobile first players like it has been with PC and the console audience. So it's not as popular as it was on PC and console. So it makes me kind of wonder what were the expectations on this thing. And the reason is that it was pretty successful when it started. Pre-launch, this game had 45 million signups when it was released in March 2024, and within the first 4 days the game had generated $1.4 million in revenue. It's still actually not to think that it was only then. In February 2025, according to Statista, the game still generated about $490,000 in revenue. So for now, the servers are still active, but the last day to download the title was on May 18th. So that's already gone. You can't download it anymore.
I think that that the whole concept of like the industry just like cutting back on its user base, that's why that's happening. It's across the board, mobile, everything.
Fatal Fury City of the Wolves has been part of our tech section for a few weeks, but now it finds itself in our news section, boys.
Oh,
So Ace, I got it's not too much trouble, just a little bit of news. Well, maybe a little bit of trouble. SNK's CEO Matsubara-san is stepping down and transitioning to an advisory role within the company following the release of the title a month ago. It's hard to tell what the future holds for the title, but the all-time Steam player count peaked at roughly 4,500. That's it. And in Japan, only 10,000 copies have been reported sold by the end of the release's second week. So we've been talking about how popular this is going to be and the kind of some of the issues that are facing it, but now like the CEO stepping down, transitioning, and then now we're starting to see some actual stuff like in terms of sales come out. And how does that make you feel?
I'll be real with you. When I went and picked up my copy, I was literally the only one that actually pre-ordered that limited edition from GameStop. Like I called in the day before just to check on my pre-order, and as like pretty much as soon as they got on the phone with me, they're like, "Oh, your pre-order's here. You can come pick it up tomorrow."
Yeah, ain't nobody buying that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, come on over.
We got plenty of copies.
That right there, actually, that was my first clue that, no matter how good this game may be, or no matter, how packed with content the game may be, the fact that I was the only one that pre-ordered it at that location, period, that tells me a couple things about it. And
well, I mean, I think there's a few things that can be contributed to that. One, it's like it's a fighting game. Not a lot of people play fighting games in scope of gaming like genres, right? So it's always been known that way. Like fighting games are a weird niche, right?
Yeah.
We've always known that. Two, people are probably pre-ordering it online, right? And getting sent to the house. Ever since COVID, people are just ordering it, not going to the brick and mortar stores anymore. So we don't know. We don't know what numbers are. I mean, I pre-ordered it on Amazon. That's just how I am, right? So you wouldn't have known that. But as far as Fatal Fury, the title goes, it's not a mainline SNK title. No matter how much we want it to be, the King of Fighters is the mainline fighting game for SNK, and I think it's just like we're going back to playing catch up again, right? The last game that came out with Fatal Fury was Garrow, Mark of the Wolves, and this was more like of a respect to the fans of how we want to give you the sequel versus SNK going, this is going to make us money. Honestly, that's how I felt from the beginning. And also, I think this was the the KOF invitation letter for Capcom and SNK for SNK 3. Because they have DLC characters for Chun-Li and Ken in this game.
Yep.
So I think this is their like shaking hands. We'll put your characters in our game, you put our characters in your game. Right, so this game is still important, regardless if it's sold a lot, because it's now combining two of the biggest fighting game companies out there to make our next dream game. So that's just my take on it.
Hopefully, there'll be enough people there to play it and boost that, and it means something to them. Otherwise, they may say this didn't do well. We're not going to do this again in the future.
Well, Nicholas, Fighting Game Collection 2 just had released a few days ago.
Yeah, well, I won't check. I won't check Steam database for that, but that might be passing up Fatal Fury already.
Yeah.
Ubisoft has some rapid fire updates for us this week, fam. First and foremost, we're finally getting a Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake. The news is that the company it has announced that it will release before April 2026. So they put a deadline on that. Assassin's Creed Shadows is getting a Dead by Daylight collaboration as well, which is planned for May 27th. All these news bits kind of came out during Ubisoft's end of year financial earnings call, where they also detailed that they've made the decision to delay some of their major IPs and games to improve quality. Part of that is probably because of Shadows being delayed and that being improved, and seeing the response on that. Insider Gaming is reporting sources and past reports that call out titles like AC's entire pipeline, the next installments of Far Cry, and likely including the Splinter Cell remake and the next Ghost Recon game, all part of those delays.
So what they're missing there from Ubisoft, what they really want to capture us again, Nick, to get us to buy another game from them, Rainbow Six Patriots. Gosh, where are you on this?
Give me Vegas 3, man. I loved Vegas 2 much.
That was the third
I know
one.
It was supposed to be, but I don't know if I want to play Patriots right now. I'll play Vegas
I'm just
3.
saying, Rainbow Six Vegas, finish that storyline. We would love to play that. Trust me.
Hey, if the servers were still up, I would absolutely do a community day of us playing Vegas 2, because you can still play it on your own, but they killed the servers for it, which really sucks, because I bought it when it was like 99 cents, and I convinced my buddy, to play it with me and buy it, and then we found out after we bought it, the servers were dead. Sucks. Only got a couple quick things for Rumor Mill. Same as always, take these as a grain of salt. Plans change. Anything come of this, but it's worth kind of bringing up and chat about a little bit. Game Reactor and Nintendo Duo have both claimed that Rockstar is working on releasing Red Dead Redemption 2 for the Switch 2 this year. Not only that, this port could be released alongside a next-gen upgrade patch for the PS5 and the Series S and X. Some more leaks have appeared for Call of Duty Black Ops 7, and data mines were posted on X by user at COD Warfare Forum, which shows code apparently confirming that, yes, wall running is going to return to this series. So cue all the debates over the pros and cons of this feature coming back. There's already a bunch of people in communities flaming both sides of this. Whether or not you think it's a good idea doesn't matter, but at least we're getting wall riding, which makes me dismiss Titanfall. Xstasis is back this week, leaking more information as well. This time they're claiming that the Microsoft Store is testing how to integrate Steam into their platform. Now, this does make sense, as we know Microsoft is working on their handheld console, and they've been communicating how the company plans to make Xbox more like a PC in many ways anyway. We'll see what this all means and if it ends up being true, but that's kind of the rumor mill this week. I do have an article And this article this week that we're going to chat about is really based kind of like an extension of something James was talking about on his stream. James was asked a question on the stream about how he feels about the art steal whole thing that's happened. If you haven't heard, there was an artist that accused Bungie of plagiarizing their work that they did back in 2017 for Marathon. And James, I think you said before stream you wanted to expound on that. I'm like, perfect. We've got an article about it. You got feelings on it, I know. But the main article I wanted to call out with Paul Tassi over at Forbes released this on the 17th. So it's 3 days old. Like I said at the very top, this is kind of what everyone's talking about right now. Let's pull this up. It has not been good for Bungie lately. And there's a bunch of reasons they're in the news. None of them are good right now. After the alpha came out and the kind of like middling response to it, there's like some good things about it. I know me personally, I was talking about how I really dug the style of it. And now it turns out that some of that style was plagiarized. So as Paul Tassi writes here, chaos has engulfed Bungie after an artist, Anti-Real, came forward to accuse Bungie of ripping off her 2017 work as its upcoming extraction shooter Marathon was starting to take shape as early as 2018. Bungie has admitted to the plagiarism, supposedly the work of one ex-artist, and promised to make things right, but the story gained traction amongst gaming outlets and reaction streamers alike, and it's poisoned the previous positive conversation about the aesthetic of the game. One of the reasons this is really bad right now for the company is a lot of things have kind of cascaded from this coming out. Paul writes here a little bit further, but when he was speaking to current and former employees about like the art theft, rather, pardon me, and the studio morale and the possibility of a delay, got some information out of that. So the public explanation for the art theft, which Bungie said it was one ex-employee that had taken things in 2020, and that reasoning is the same one that's being given internally at Bungie among the rank and file. So at least their story is consistent. They're not telling the insider something different than what they're saying on the outside. Sony and Bungie Legal are now sorting through this, and there is unlikely to be any new information as all this continues to unfold. It's not clear how long an audit will take of all the assets to remove or find more plagiarism, but it's an expensive enough process to have Bungie not even show any footage in its recent live stream. And that was the other little bit of news that happened recently, was they're going to do new live stream. That was going to have a new trailer. And instead it was two devs on screen having to answer questions and talk about this situation with the plagiarism. And it was plenty awkward. I felt really bad for the team there having to answer that. It wasn't their fault, but it was a problem as a whole. Paul goes on to say morale's in free fall across all departments, and the vibes have never been worse. Everyone has the same concerns about what happens to Bungie as a studio if Marathon bombs, which is something they absolutely cannot afford. So this is, again, falling on the back of people talking about the alpha and mentioning how, hey, this game doesn't really feel like it's going to be ready in a few months. I don't know if it needs more time in the oven, needs to bake a little bit longer. There's a lot of discussion in the community about like, hey, we kind of wish there was more of like a PvE bent, or there was more content. It's only 3 maps with the 4th one coming at launch. Like it felt like there needed to be more, right? And I think we discussed that a little bit when we were talking about when it was launched, the launch trailer for it. Some changes to future plans have been made even before this new plagiarism development, mainly as a reaction to the gameplay footage and now closed alpha. Paul writes, at the start of this month, Bungie pulled the plug on its main Marathon marketing plan, which was going to have a new trailer in June, along with the launch of pre-orders. The whole campaign needs to be reworked now. A heavily marketed public beta in August may be changed into a roadmap of public playtests with no actual details set yet. This would align with Bungie's stated multiple opportunities to play before launch rather than just the upcoming beta. Apparently, Marathon was originally pitched by a higher-up good old boy Bungie leadership as far back as 5 years ago. Devs were telling them would and what wouldn't work, and were often ignored. Many have said previously that it needed to have some sort of PvE component. As mentioned in this article by Paul, other outlets were picking this up and talking to former developers. One former developer known online as Spirited, who worked on the engineering side of the game, said that he felt for those still working on the title, because he says, quote, "Working with engineering/marathon leadership was extremely toxic and humiliating," he said. "I won't speak about the rest, but Bungie leadership needs to be gutted completely." So just to show some of the artwork assets, this was Anti-Real's post just showing the work that they had done before and then showing in the trailer where it was taken. And you can see it is pretty much word for word ripped over and put in the game. And it did predate it. They have dates, but you can definitely see where this like language that this person came up with and the design elements that they came up with were just straight up taken and plopped in the game. Say what you will about like game dev studios and having to keep an eye on this kind of stuff or just letting it fly. Like Bungie is trying to make right on it right now and has reached out to Anti-Real, so I'm not going to try to downplay that. But you could definitely tell these assets have been taken, and then on top of this, the plagiarism and admitting to it, they're also starting to see a ton of morale issues, a ton of like stuff leaking out. It's just a really bad time at Bungie, and during a time where they cannot afford any more mistakes. We've talked a lot about it before, and a lot of people know how much money Sony has sunk into Bungie and how much Destiny has been losing the money and how much they need a hit, right? So again, this is the big cloud cover of things that are going on. So I wanted to read that article, send it out there to our community, our people in chat right now, but also our panel members here. Like, what do you think about the situation? James had, like I mentioned, been asked a question about this whole situation on his stream, but I think he has a little bit more to say about it now that he has a chance to, actually think about it.
Yeah, actually, Blue is actually right in chat right now as we're chatting. He was the one that asked me the question, so that's perfect. So this has so many layers to it, and it's kind of wild, right? First of all, Bungie just had a round of layoffs, from what I remember. Sony had just kind of like depleted the ranks even more when they bought them. So I understand why morale is low. They do need a hit for sure. Leadership being kind of like annoying to work with. I can feel that. I feel that pain. Sometimes they're just so out of touch with like what the community wants versus what the investors want, and I get that. I understand that. And also, and then let's go to the art theft, right? So this was apparently was done by one employee, right? It wasn't like, was it like one employee?
Yeah,
was
they
it
said it was an ex-employee who no longer works with the company.
So ex-employee. So the first thing I can think of, and I was trying to expand on Blue's question, is like, what my thoughts were on this. The first thing that came to mind as a creator myself is like, why did this person decide to steal for his job, right? Why did this person decide to do this, make this decision to, take another piece of artwork and put it to another product, and then assuming it's not going to get caught, especially when you're such a popular company like Bungie, right? So to me, I feel like the quality and level of devs over time has changed also. Like we talked about historically in this channel, we said BioWare has changed, right? All these other companies have changed a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I think Bungie is no different. The Bungie that was there when we started playing Destiny 2, is not the same Bungie as it is now. It's like those people have moved on, right? We got new blood, new people. And I feel like the people that we have now either they're doing this for the buck, they're doing this for the glory, but they're not doing it for the passion, right? And I think this is why this person decided to steal, right? Clearly they were inspired by this art, wanted to put it and make it theirs, right? But at the same time, it's like it's an easy way out to creating your own. Right. So that's the issue that I'm coming across is why did they do this? Well, maybe because morale's low. Maybe they weren't feeling valued in the company. Maybe they were like, hey, I'm on my way out anyway. Ex-employee out here. Right. So let me just get this done, get paid, and let me go. Right. just so I said I did something. So now I don't blame the other devs that didn't steal this. It's just a bad look within their company from one employee, right? I don't think the game deserves to get wrecked because of this for this one person, right? But I do think, like we talked about this before, this game is a little bit out of touch to what people currently want right now. Clearly they were like, we need PvE. People love PvE. And then those higher ups were like, no, extraction shooter. Right. So this is why I can't blame the devs. I understand like there's bureaucracy and they have to go listen to leadership. So I honestly wish the best for these guys. Do what you can with it. The morale is low, but just know that like if any Bungie people are watching this, like do your best, man, because even if you are going to move on to a different company, this is going to haunt you. Like this guy that left, it's going to haunt him now. Right? That's that. I wish you guys good luck on whatever you guys do. That's all I got to say about that. So it's just so many layers to this.
Yeah, there is a lot of layers and there is a lot happening right now. That's one of the reasons I wanted to open that to discussion and share that article. There's plenty of great articles out there, tons of videos online that are discussing this in the last few days. So check those out if you want to dive a little bit deeper. But I thought for us as a panel, since we do this once a week, this is kind of the big thing right now. Even Anti-Real said in that post where they called out the asset stealing was, I don't have the resources nor the energy to spare to pursue this legally, but I have lost count of the number of times a major company has deemed it easier to pay a designer to imitate or steal my work than to write me an email. In 10 years, I have never made a consistent income from this work, and I'm tired of designers from huge companies mood boarding and parasiting my designs while I struggle to make a living.
That's not good.
Yeah, so that kind of hits on what you were saying, and with this as well, I think it's the fact that it's also the context of what you just discussed. Was this game feels like it's coming out to chase a very specific style of game that's already feeling a little oversaturated, and it's being overshadowed by other things happening at the same time. Like Arc Raiders is getting pretty good reviews despite not having like a crazy aesthetic to it. Now I did like the aesthetic for what they were going for in Marathon, but now it's like been completely clouded. If there's one thing that generally most people called out as positive, it was this aesthetic and this style, and now that's gone. For the
yeah, it got
team,
tainted.
Right?
It got tainted.
Right,
yeah.
right. So now you're sitting here like, okay, what does this have that's different? Well, now the art style needs to be completely redone, or at least the assets need to be completely like retuned, right? On top of a game or a gameplay style that we saw that didn't really look like it was going to set the world on fire because of all the aforementioned stuff. And it's coming up real soon to that release date, and they haven't said anything about delaying it. Like there's nothing to do to win right now for this, and that's why it's become such a discussion topic. Ace, did you have some stuff to throw in?
I was about to say it's hard to try and put together an extraction shooter when you've already got Escape from Tarkov on the field.
Well, I mean, like I said earlier, it's about like you're a little too late. You know what I'm saying? Like competition is great and all, but like earlier, like I said in another episode, we were saying, well, what makes us different from Hunt Showdown, Tarkov, all the other extraction shooters out there? Division has an extraction mode, right? So I was thinking, like, how can we save Marathon? And immediately I was like, they should just put this in Destiny. It adds more value in Destiny, and they could set it up in a way where maybe like one of the Guardians finds a computer file, and it's a quest for them to access the extraction shooter called Marathon, and then those guys can play Marathon as the Guardians, right? I think that'd be fun. It's kind of in world, but the issue though is there's here, like Nick, you're right. These are the head ups going, this is what's hot right now. Right. And then these guys are begging, like, we need a PvE. Trust me, we do. And the leadership is like, no, you don't, because this is what sells. Right. So it's kind of annoying. Also, I read somewhere earlier today that this is not the first time Bungie was caught plagiarizing.
No, apparently Bungie's been doing this. Like Andre mentioned it the other day on, when he was on my stream, but apparently Bungie's been doing this since Halo 2.
Yeah. Well, the one that the incident that I was speaking of was actually in Destiny 2, they had outsourced some work to this external company, which then was then they said that they had copied it and stole it from another artist that caught them. And so, but that was resolved, and they were like, you know, paid for their work, and they were kind of like given, you know, their due. The artist was given their due. But it seems like it's just bad luck. And it's one of those things, like I said, it's like the bigger the company gets, the harder it is to rein in everybody as a team, as a coherent team, right? And I think this is why games like Clair Obscur work really well, because everyone's close to each other, and you can get stuff done quicker. When you have big teams of big companies like this, it gets more like you got to hold people accountable. You know, this guy's not even here anymore, and his work, or whoever's work, is now making the company suffer, and these other guys suffer because of what they did, or what that person did.
Shout out to Cactus HD. Sorry if I was mispronouncing that, just for letting us grabbing us and putting in the background when we talk about it. He covered this really well too. I liked it. Definitely look it up if you want to find a little more about it than what we're going in depth on, since we have more limited time. But yeah, it's worth bringing up. It's worth talking about. There's a lot going on with it. It'll be really interesting to see. That's not to say like some of these games that are looking to jump into something that's being done or something that is trending, if they can make it new, if they can make it better, if they can innovate, then there's nothing wrong with that. If the team wants to make a business decision to do that, however, it needs to be done right. And then you just can't go to then blame other people or the consumers for its failure. It's like you're going into a very complex and saturated market. You have to do something different. And like I said, now the one thing that really set apart Marathon in my mind, even though I'm not a fan of extraction shooters, it's not my kind of game, now I'm really not interested. It's going to have a huge hill for this team to climb, and it really sucks because there are a lot of really talented people, a few that I've worked with that now work there, or have worked there and may not be working there anymore since the layoffs. It's crazy, man. I don't know what to think about this, and it could spell the end for Bungie. And on the point you made earlier about putting into Destiny, I think it's the fact they're not going to do that because that doesn't make business sense to them. They've seen Destiny's dwindling player numbers and loss of money, and trying to shoehorn that into there. I don't think it's going to, they probably know it's not going to capture enough people to come back. So like, we got to do a completely new thing, completely different, to make any kind of money back on this investment.
But see, this is what they don't understand. And I'm specifically talking to leadership, right? And hell that they'll watch this. But I'm saying is that this is what they don't get. When you put this into Destiny, you get Destiny 2's player base immediately. They will be playing it, right? Which means that is your free marketing for this game. Now, the new people that want to play, you'll get them to play Destiny for free, but then access Marathon through Destiny. Yes, it's not going to be like a Doom launch, like, you know, extravaganza, right? It's not going to be that successful. But at this point, you don't have that option. You got to make this work in some way or form, right? So, and this is what I mean. I'm like talking to the heads, is because they're so obsessed with money that they're willing to kill, like, you know, the legacy of this company and what they're making right now, just so they can be, just to make a point, right? But they're playing with people's, like, you know, livelihoods and careers here. Is the part that pisses me off. So that's all.
Yeah, and I get that. It's a good argument to make. For me, I forgot about that. The chat during this live stream was also brutal, like way worse than Nintendo. It was real rough. To devil's advocate that a little bit, the problem is that even if you throw that in there and you have that install base, you're not bringing in new players, really. Yeah, you can jump in for free, but anytime they do any kind of new updates, they see a very, very little bit of peak, and it's from the people that are just returning. They're not bringing in new people, and adding an extraction shooter mode is essentially like adding a new Gambit mode, right? It's only going to move the needle just a little bit. It's not worth the investment, the amount of money they're losing. It has to be a complete shift. So, but I get what you're going for. Absolutely. That's what I had for the article, guys. That's what I had for the news. This is going to be an evolving thing over the next little bit. I'm sure our news sections are going to be talking about, like, either the downfall, the delay, or the complete rework. And I don't know if we'll get a swan song for Bungie, but this may be it.
Man, that stream was like,
it's pretty rough.
A public execution.
You can tell from their faces. They were just like, I don't want to be here right now. This is not going to go well.
Some of them probably, I mean, the two on there, they look like they hadn't slept in a while too. And I know some other people have called that out, like some of the other videos. Like once people said that, I looked a little closer. I'm like, oh man, yeah, they are drained.
Running on
Like this,
fumes.
right? And especially with like the low morale, all the news that's kind of coming out about that. Like even the people at the top got to be sweating pretty hard right now. This is just not good.
There's nothing worse than being a creative and doing something you hate, doing something you don't want to do, but then you're expressively saying this is not what we should be doing to leadership, but they want you to do it.
So Andre in chat is asking, do we think it's going to get delayed? I think it needs to be delayed. I don't know if it will. And that's really the telltale thing is are they going to push it out?
And here's why, Andre, that Nick is right on this, and I agree with him. It's because investors want their fiscal investments count to go higher before third quarter. That's all it is. It's because investors like myself, right? They want their money now for this quarter, which is stupid because you're gonna make a trash product, right? And then you're gonna blame everybody around you for having no profits. Yeah,
I don't know if it was it 2 weeks ago we had the whole discussion about like shareholders and what's ruining the gaming industry.
Yeah, that was me.
But yeah.
That was 2K. I showed you guys the 2K stat, right?
Yeah.
Because
that's that cliff dive.
That is the part of the gaming industry I've been following more recently because I just been around people that are obsessed with the market, right? And so I, for one, have been kind of combining my passion for video games and the stock market. And so I've been learning as I go, and I'm hating it more and more, actually, to be honest. And I want to be investing into the stuff I love. And I tell that to everybody. I know it's like if you're putting money into it, put money down on it, because now you're investing into your own success, right? Now that drop in the 2K stock for an announcement of a delay or a release date. It's not even an announcement of a delay. It's just a release date for next year.
It was a slight delay, but yeah.
But they weren't. They never said it was going to be released this year. It was the actual.
They fall though. They did.
Oh, did they say fall?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was an official delay. So that's part of the reason that was such a big drop was that they had said before that they were aiming for a fall 2025 release window.
So that action that I showed you, that drop in stock, is why they're pushing this game out as much as quickly as possible. I know it sounds backwards, but that's because why? People have put money, given them money to make this game, the investors, right? They go, well, my money's due now, right? You gotta release, you gotta give me something back, right? And so this is why I don't think they'll push it back, because if those investors who don't care about video games, by the way, they care about the money, are gonna want that result ASAP. Now, if you had more investors like me, where I'm like, I care about the finished product because I'm playing the long game. Right, because those investors that pulled their money out in that 2K stock for that release date, they don't care about the game. They just knew the game was going to be good and they're going to make money off it. That's all. That's the type of people that are investing that are pulling their money out. So just know that and know the difference, because there is a huge difference between those kinds of guys that are like the short term, the shorters in the market, and also people that are actually like, I support this and I want this to be a success for this company. So. Just know that.
And I'll use this platform again to say, if you haven't seen that video that Alana Pierce put out talking about this, we linked it in our pod. Watch that video just to get a little more of an understanding of the forces at play. She does a great job of really diving into that and calling out the negative forces that James was just mentioning.
Yeah. I mean, that's all I got. It's all negative, but H, you got it still in you to do the tech, or you want to save that for later?
Let's go ahead and save it for next week. We're already about to hit 10 o'clock.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'm going to jump right into the rhetorical here, because it's you guys something. All right. Loading it up.
PS3.
Yeah. So I had a couple questions, but I'll stick with one. Captions here. So this one's interesting. This question comes from, and the inspiration from Spot. What is that? What's the one, the Jim Carrey movie? The Spotless of the Eternal Mind, or whatever it's called.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Wow, I'm dyslexic. So
that's okay. I was reading articles earlier, and see, I just said I screwed it up. So we're on par.
All right, chat. If you're watching right now, on the screen you'll see the question: if you could erase your memory of one game just to experience it fresh again, which game would that be? All right, think about it. Take like 30 seconds to kind of think of your answer. I want to see it on chat. I want to talk about it a little bit more. I want to hear from the panel because this is one of those games where you're like, man, it was so good. I just want to wipe my memory clean and play it again for the first time. Right? That's a pretty good game. That's a pretty good game. So while you guys are doing that, we'll go ahead and play a little bit of tunes here for you. Show this right here. Yeah, think about it for a second.
That's not good thinking music for me, man.
Yeah, it is good music. Think about it.
I think you need to change it. That's what I think.
There you go. It's better.
Yeah, there we go. Some battle music. Okay.
And when you guys are ready, I'll turn off the music.
I've already got mine.
Okay. What's yours, Ace? Go for it.
Chrono Trigger.
Okay. Tell me what moment or what about that game that you want to experience fresh again in your brain.
Well, aside from just again, just that feeling of adventure that you get as as the stakes get higher and higher, it seems like every single time you jump back to a new time period, the stakes in the game are just getting higher and higher. But really, the moment that really sticks out for me in Chrono Trigger, though, is the whole Green Dream side quest with Robo. And just, not just the fights in, that sandpit area where, that sandpit area in the middle of the continent, but, Robo actually, marshaling his resolve just to say, look, this place, this barren land could be turned into something amazing. Fiona has already started, doing the work, trying to get the seeds ready to plant to revitalize this forest. I'm a robot. I'm not going to die. I might just need some maintenance. Let me do the work. And then you travel 400 years into the future. So you jump back to the present day and just seeing that forest where that wasteland used to be, and then the scene with your team around the campfire. It all just really brings together the concepts of the story that Chrono Trigger is telling. Not just the time travel, but also the connections that you're making between characters as you go through and meet them and explore their time periods, help solve their problems. And the Green Dream quest is, that's Robo's side quest as you're finishing up the game, getting ready to go take on Lavos for the last time. So just that sort of capstone moment in the game. That's something I would love to experience again for the first time.
Solid. But you know what's funny? I actually forgot about that. So I'm glad that you brought it up because that I do remember like you sacrificing a Robo for a brief period of time so he can help kind of like terraform the area.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into the future and you're like, whoa, that's cool. That was good. So I'm glad that you brought that up because that just reminds me I just need to play Chrono Trigger again eventually. So what about you, Nick?
There's a lot of different ways I can go about this one. The easiest answer for me is Mass Effect, and it's hard for me to overstate and understate at the same time what that series means to me. I have always been a big fan of BioWare games. I loved playing KOTOR, love playing KOTOR 2, love playing Jade Empire, love playing Dragon Age. For me, Mass Effect was this perfect kind of like Venn diagram of things I'm interested in. I love sci-fi. I love good orchestral soundtracks as well. And the soundtrack for Mass Effect 1 just set this tone for my expectation for these kind of games moving forward. And this was back in 2007. I still listen to that soundtrack and the soundtracks for 2 and for 3. just that space opera story, you having all your characters, companion stories, you can really choose where the story goes, and the fact that your decisions actually mattered. It was just kind of like that agency I was always looking for in video games, on top of this great soundtrack, on top of this interesting story that was well thought out, on top of these interesting characters. So that for me is the easiest answer for that wishful thinking of just like, if I could wipe my brain and experience again for the first time, it's got to be Mass Effect. That being said, there's plenty of other games that I honestly wish I could re-experience for the first time, but for different reasons. Another one being Uncharted. I loved Indiana Jones growing up. I played Tomb Raider. I loved playing Uncharted and playing Uncharted 2 when that came out, because it was such a jump over the original game. I loved that game, and I ended up loving Uncharted 4, the way that story kind of like finished. So that is like an entire experience I loved as well. And I always talk about how much I love Half-Life 2. Like, those are 3 titles, those 3 like experiences I would love to get back again and just re-experience. But I will fully admit that the Half-Life 2 choice is really of the moment, where I was in life at that time, being really into Counter-Strike, being really into these kind of games, and just realizing how great, Half-Life 1 was. 2 was just greater, grander, loved it, where they were going with the story. But again, you're gonna twist my arm on it, it's got to be Mass Effect.
Yeah, and I mean, with that answer, I'm kind of glad that you're watching my gameplay, so I can ruin all your experiences.
Yeah. Well, to be completely honest, man, I've ruined them a lot myself. That was the best part about playing Mass Effect, is going through and making the different decisions. And like I mentioned to you before we started, kind of like the save loads. Like, I would be like, I hate the way that turned out. Let me go back to my save file, reload, and try again.
That's the thing that I'm trying to avoid, because that's why I like to pause and talk to chat, even though no one's there. Sometimes I'm just like, man, all right, what would I really say if I was in front of this person, right? And then I just shoot him in the face because I'm Space Tate, right? Usually what it is. But yeah, no, I don't blame you for Mass Effect. I'm kind of getting that experience right now, which is kind of cool. That it's my first playthrough of it, and I get it. I understand why. So we get a lot of answers from the chat here. We got Mass Effect from Stick Figure Drawing, Metal Gear Solid 2 from Andre Venom, Sons of Liberty. That's a good one. It's a very special one. Smoking Scorpion says Subnautica 1 for pure hands down. That's an interesting one. I would love to know why. Let's see here. Devil May Cry 3 for Blue Right Bot. That actually was a pretty badass one. Not going to lie to you. That's a good one. But yeah, Metal Gear Solid 2 was pretty good. Chrono Trigger, Mass Effect, yeah, all good. Initially, my brain went to Chrono Trigger because there were a lot of different memories from the time where you're like, bro, Frog is actually a cursed knight that you can help cure or befriend the guy that turned him into a frog and have him in your party. I was like, oh man, the first time I played it, I decided to kill him, right? Because I was like, I got your back, Frog, right? And then I realized, my friend was like, you didn't recruit him? I was like, you could recruit him? I didn't know that, right? So, yeah, it's just those moments. But also, I was thinking about this too, and I was like, well, we're talking about now, right? Like, not Kid James, because Kid James has played other games or different games at the time. Games didn't really have a big narrative, like cinematic feel to it, like Mass Effect, like Uncharted, right? So I'm thinking to be fair to this question, which game would I erase the memory and play it again now, like present time? So it's a timepiece question for myself, at least.
Oh, still Mass Effect.
Yeah, no, that's true. And for me, I was like, what game was it has really struck a chord with me, and what experience were in games where it really changed my life? I would say if I can go back to being 13 years old, right, loving fighting games, loving the 2D fighting game world, right, I would probably love to erase my memory of Killer Instinct, the first Killer Instinct, because I remember hearing that damn arcade at the roller skating rink in Chicago, Rainbow Roller Skating Rink, and all you hear is
available for your home in 1995.
That's all you hear at the arcade. And chat, I don't know if you heard that. Let me crank it up for y'all's. All right, watch your ears, guys.
Available for your home in 1995.
All right, so that's what you would hear at the arcade all the time. In addition to the killer combo, master combo, right? That's all you would hear, and the full gore scream, because that's what how they caught your attention to play these. And so, I think like that brought like 13-year-old James joy. To be like, what is this? Whoa, look at these graphics. Oh my God, the sounds. Oh, these characters. This game looks so real. And we're talking KI1, right? So that pure innocence and appreciation for like the newest tech, the loudest tech, the best tech in a genre that I really love. I haven't felt that way about a fighting game in a long time. Right. And maybe that's because I've been playing games for, forever. And fighting games is like the thing that I like judge very harshly. And I love being involved in it. Like I have like over 70, 80 hours in Tekken 8 right now, probably more. Right. I'm once again 2 ranks away from Tekken God. Right. And I'm still interested in playing. Like that's it's actually a rank in Tekken. I'm not being facetious. So, but yeah, it's a grind. And I love it. So I just don't have like that feeling.
I've got one more answer just based on you talking about all this. It's just like giving me these vibes. Go ahead and finish. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just
that's all I'm saying. It's like that feeling cannot be emulated now. Even if like the game could be like put these VR goggles on, right? And now you're gonna feel all the punches. I feel like that feeling of that new type of game just won't have that same feeling back then, because like we were so archaic back then, and to have that leap, in visual, audio, and experience of being not at home and being in like around people watching you in a crowd cheering you on, right? That's a whole new experience that we will never get again outside of esports, I believe. Like Evo is the closest thing you'll get, but to have that local arcade experience in your community, knowing everybody's name that goes to the arcade, them knowing you to be the guy that picks this character that has 30 wins in a row, right? That it's not the same anymore. So I would love to get that back as far as a timepiece memory. So go ahead.
That's fair. With you bringing that up, that kind of reminds me of that exact feeling you mentioned of just like that was a time for young James. Mass Effect for me, like I said, is pretty defining for my passion in gaming history and games in general, and that was in 2007. If I can leap forward a little bit, you want to talk about something that I jumped into like full body, it was Yakuza 0. And I'm not bringing that up just because Andre's in chat and that's what I fucking talk about all the time. I know that, my group of friends, but you're talking about like a moment in your life and how that sticks with you. And I'm only bringing this up because you said that, and I started to get like that feeling in the back of my head of just like, he's right. Like what's something a little more recent that really changed how I felt about things and was like an of the moment thing that I really wish I could get back. And it's a little bit of that nostalgia. That game came out in 2015, and March 2015, 2 months before I was about to graduate from college, because I went back to college. I ended up losing my job and decided to go back to college to finish my degree. And my minor was in Japanese because I was planning on going to the video game industry, which eventually I did. I knew half the industry was based in Japan. I had an interest in it, so I decided to take that on as my minors to learn the language. I'd always been playing the Yakuza games up to that point anyway, and I liked them and loved aspects of them, but this was the first one that made me just like, I couldn't stop playing this game. And we were coming up to finals. I was the student speaker for my graduating class. I should have been doing my speech. I was playing Yakuza 0. And it was just one of those things, like it was just this perfect amalgamation of just like everything that made Yakuza great. It was so much fun, and it was at a time in my life when I was looking to make this transition into the industry to learn this language. Now I was picking up so much more, so much of the fact that when I was finally able to graduate 2 months after that, I went out and found a Yamazaki 18, which you can drink in the game. You can drink actual like whiskeys in the game. So I found that one, just like took my Yakuza 0 like collector's edition, sat down and enjoyed this Yamazaki 18 to celebrate this like defining moment of my life. And it was around this time when I was just playing this game, which is to a lot of people, myself and Andre have been calling it out. It's like, this is really the peak of this series. But I literally could not stop playing it. Whenever I play a Yakuza game lately, I mean, there's always that kind of feeling like, oh, it's just, you know, very similar to the last one. You're going to do this grind. You're able to like put the game down and you can come back. You know what to expect. This was the first time that I felt like I couldn't stop. And like I said, it was just at a time in my life where I really just want that experience back. And that's maybe not so much the game, but just like my life at the time and how I want that back. So just a little more nuance on top of it. I appreciate you asking that question and mentioning what you mentioned, because now I'm like, man, I just remember this very specific point in my personal history that was tied intrinsically to this game and that experience I had.
It was definitely, sounds like a very good experience.
It was. That's why I won't
Momentous.
shut up about that game and why I've been trying to get you to play it.
Man, apparently there's a whole subset of games that I just have to catch up on, and unfortunately there's numbers associated with those games. I just need to tell work I need a month off for mental health, and I'll just play video games all month. So.
I wish.
Yeah, right. No, we can only dream. But yeah, I was gonna tell Andre that like, yeah, Metal Gear 2 I think had a longer script than the Terminator 2. MGS2 Sons of Liberty had a longer script than Terminator 2. So keep that in mind. That was pretty cool. But yeah, we're a little bit over, but man, good content tonight, guys. Good stuff. So just wanted to kind of end this stream, because we are a little bit over, with the campaign for St. Jude's Children's Cancer Research. Just know we're still going to be doing this for another week or so. And I think currently I'm looking at my dashboard here. We're at 145 out of 500. I've already lit the fires of Gondor at work. I told my mom to share my link with anybody that's interested. They usually donate too. So I think they're just waiting till like the weekend where I'm actually streaming Mass Effect or something. So but yeah, if you have friends and family that would love to donate, we would love to have you hit that goal and make all these kids tomorrows a little bit better. And then maybe they all can play Chrono Trigger, Mass Effect, and Yakuza 0. So, and have them kind of enjoy what we enjoyed, because we'd love to experience that. And one of the things before I close out for tonight was one of the things that really caught on to me about a few months ago. I was watching this streamer on YouTube. I forgot her name. Younger person, definitely Gen Alpha, right? And she was playing Devil May Cry 1, 2, and 3. And watching her reactions to the characters, the Dante's insanity and Dante's like charm, a younger person playing it really brought me back to when I first experienced those things myself. And I thought it was really cute. It was really cool that this like younger person, probably half our age, was enjoying the same games we were enjoying back then, and getting your own unique modern take on it. And it was very cute. It was very enlightening. So it was. I urge you guys to find a younger streamer. This sounds weird. A younger streamer.
Sounds really weird.
Yeah, to watch an authentic response and reaction to the games you used to play as a kid, because it'll really bring you back to that feeling. I know I was there for a brief moment, and I was like, yeah, I felt the same way, and I'm glad that wasn't only me. You feel kind of validated. So
of course, I can say for me, I don't have to worry about, finding a younger streamer to watch, because I have younger relatives. I have a platoon of nephews and nieces.
Well, Andre called it that. It was Sarah Kay, and yeah, she played like all of the Bayonettas, all the Devil May Cries.
Nice.
And I pretty much had the same experience. It was more like, this is a wild game with like crazy big eyes, like, whoa, this is crazy.
It makes me kind of wonder what I'm going to end up having when my daughter's born. Is she going to be games?
I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you. And honestly, I think like
she hates video games, because it's just like that's such a big part of my life.
Yeah, like I think spending time with her as you're playing video games, that even though she's baby girl, she's gonna feel that, like, like the energy. And I think she'll end up loving it more than you think she will. So good luck with that.
Yeah,
Looking
thanks.
forward to it. Anyways, guys.
I'll bring her down to bother you.
Oh, great. Babysit. All right. Well, that's a wrap for Class 32 from the Gaming Academy. We got a lot of content covered today, from Nintendo returning to Gamescom to Bungie's Marathon Mayhem and all the wild game anniversaries in between. Now, we hope you walked away tonight with something fun, thoughtful, or at least meme worthy. I would love to see memes of Gaming Academy. That would be kind of fun. Shout out again to everyone supporting St. Jude's charity. Seriously, your generosity is powering hope and our future gamers. So yeah, you're part of it. If you haven't yet, check the link below. It's floating right down there, right along with the QR code. Consider making a donation. Every little bit helps. And we'll be back next week with more gaming history, hot takes, and rhetorical brain busters. And until then, stay curious, stay kind, and above all, stay gaming. Peace out, fam.
Class dismissed.
Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.